Okay, so welcome everybody to another exciting installment. Right, so we, studying the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the abbreviated Code of Jewish Law, and we are doing chapter 90, and we're up to number 17. No, 16. Yes, 17. 16. Right, 16. There we go. Lucky I'm decisive.
Yeah, right. Can we vote on that? Okay.
Yes. So just to remind everybody, we mentioned, we started off saying that anything that we are allowed to do on Shabbos, we can ask a non-Jew to do on Shabbos. Anything that we can't do ourselves on Shabbos, we can't ask a non-Jew. Now, as we said, we are going to have some exceptions to that, and we'll get through quite a few of them this week. But the general principle is that we can only ask a non-Jew to do something we can do ourselves. So, for an example, we can sweep the floor. So we can ask them to sweep the floor. We also mentioned that if they're doing something for themselves, then that's okay. So for themselves includes for us and them. So let's give some examples. If I am sitting in my house and the light goes off. Now, if the non-Jew turns on the light for me, in other words, they're not hanging around. They're not interested in using the light. They're turning on specifically for me. That I even have to protest. I have to tell them, I'm sorry, you can't do that for me. Right? Because I can't ask them to turn the light on. If they're turning it on just for themselves, right? They want the light on in this room, and they don't even know I'm there because it's dark. Right? So, then they've done it for themselves, no problem. If they put it on for both of us, right? So their intention is to give light for them and for me. So then that's okay as well, since at the end of the day, they're doing it for themselves. We also mentioned that, as we said, I can sweep the floor, so I can ask the non-Jew to sweep the floor. If the non-Jew decides that it's easier for them to vacuum, so you can't ask them to vacuum, but you don't need the floor vacuumed. You just want whatever's on the floor cleaned up. You're quite happy for it to just be swept up, but it's for their ease. It's easier for them to do the job by vacuuming. So then they can vacuum and you don't have to protest because they're not vacuuming for you. They're vacuuming for themselves because they could have, just swept it up. Similarly, let's say washing dishes. So we can wash dishes in cold water on Shabbos. So you can ask a non-Jew to wash the dishes for you in cold water. Now, they may decide that it's a much easier job to use hot water. That comes off easier. Now, we can't use the sponge on Shabbos because the sponge is going to, absorb. So when you squeeze it, it squeezes out the water. We can't do that on Shabbos. We'd have to use something else, just maybe like a steel wool or something that's not going to absorb water.
Shmata.
Yeah, well, Shmata also absorbs the water, but so you clean it with your hand, let's say. They may decide to use the sponge to make it easier for themselves. Or they may decide to put everything in the dishwasher. Again, not because that's what you want. You just want the dishes ready after Friday night dinner for Shabbos lunch. You're quite happy for them to be washed in cold water, which is something you can ask them to do. But for their ease, in other words, to help themselves, they've decided to put in the dishwasher or use the hot water, various things. So if the actual malacha, the actual Shabbos transgression is for themselves, for their benefit, then there's no problem. So that's where we were up to. We sort of need that to get that back in our mind to be able to go through the next few scenarios. So for those who just signed on, chapter 90, number 16. We were very decisive at the beginning that it was 16. Okay, so Im roya adam shachal lavle they have said. A person, you see that something, there's going to be a loss, a financial loss. So we're going to give an example. Keep going. For example, scenario. Someone's barrel of wine weakened. All right, starting to come apart, and the wine is starting to, it's going to start coming out. And it's yours, it's another Jew's, whatever happens to be, and someone's going to lose their wine. So what do? So mutter likros the goysham, you can call a non-Jew to come. Now, you can't tell him to fix the barrel. You just bring him over and say, oh, look at that. Now, even though you know this non-Jew is definitely going to repair the barrel, which could involve several malachas, several things we can't do on Shabbos. The fil malacha gemura, even a complete malacha, even something which not only rabbinically, but even on a base level, can't do on Shabbos. As long as you don't actually give the instruction, well, I'll just finish them, we'll have questions. As long as you don't actually give an instruction to fix it, and we don't even hint an instruction, there's no problem. You say, whoa, look at that. And if the person themselves understands, and this is to prevent another Jew having a large financial loss. Yeah, Ben.
Yeah, I wanted to say, if the guy is going to understand that he has to fix it, he probably understands that you called him for that reason too.
Could be, but as long as you don't say it. So let's go back a step as well, because I probably should have mentioned this in the introduction. Technically, as far as the 613 mitzvahs of the Torah goes, you could ask a non-Jew to do anything on Shabbos. Now, the problem was, as I mentioned, during the Greek occupation of Israel, before the Hanukkah story, this was the first time that Jews and non-Jews lived in the same neighborhoods and were on reasonably good terms. Not necessarily with the government at certain times, but with your neighbors. And there were certain people who organized non-Jews, essentially follow them around the entire day and do everything for them. And it destroyed Shabbos. In other words, even though people were not technically breaking Shabbos, but everything was happening. Lights on, lights off, you name it. It was happening on Shabbos. Their stores got opened up, were manned by people, it was just, so there was a rabbinical decree made at the time that you cannot ask a non-Jew to do work for you on Shabbos, to do something that you can't do yourself. So when that
means that you are allowed to do yourself.
Yeah, something that you can do yourself, you can ask a non-Jew, but something that you can't do yourself, you can't ask a non-Jew. But exceptions were put in place. So one of the exceptions is significant financial loss.
I'm sorry, Rabbi.
Yeah.
But your pronunciation, I didn't understand. Maybe you can say can do or cannot do.
Okay.
Okay, the abbreviation.
You are able to do yourself, you can ask the non-Jew to do. Anything you're not allowed to do on Shabbos, you cannot ask the non-Jew to do, except we're going to go through exceptions. That's the general principle. You cannot ask them to do it when you can't do it. But one of the first exception we're mentioning is there's going to be significant financial loss. So given an example, people used to store things in barrels. They had them in the property. We didn't get nice plastic containers. And the barrel is coming loose, the boards. And there's going to be a significant loss. The wine is going to leak out. So you call the non-Jew over. And rabbinically, you can't ask him to fix it. But one of the exceptions we said was if the person has this potential significant financial loss, so we don't give an instruction. We don't even hint. And if the person understands what they're being called over for, but as long as he didn't actually say it, there's no problem.
Okay.
Another example might be, most of us don't have barrels at home, but possibly, let's say let's say a pipe broke in your basement. Those who have basements or house, whatever it happens to be, it's going to cause significant damage to the house. Maybe some people live in a apartment complex and there's a super there, and you just call them in and show them, right? So you can't say, come fix it on Shabbos, but they've worked it out themselves, and they come and fix it because that will prevent significant financial loss. You don't have to get your floors replaced and, whatever else are going to get damaged. So that's one of the exceptions. Okay. However, you are allowed to say in front of a non-Jew. In other words, you can't say to him, you just say in front of him. Whoever rescues this object, they're not going to lose out. The Talmud actually gives this case an expression where there's a fire. Okay, now the fire is not in this person's house, but people used to have little wooden houses, and when there was a fire in the town, unfortunately it spread. And so someone comes, if he says in front of non-Jews, if someone would rescue all my belongings and take it, where he can't carry on Shabbos, they're not going to lose out. So you didn't actually ask them to do it. You didn't say what you're going to do for them. You just made a general statement. However, the ein lasoi zois el b'makom hesed meruba, that you can only do if there's going to be a very large, extremely significant financial loss. So that's why example of one's belongings in the case of a fire is a good example. Not something muksa left on the front lawn that might get a little rusty. We're talking about something serious, financial loss. Then you could make this general statement in front of non-Jews, and they can work it out on their own. That's in their interest to come and help. Okay. Any questions on that one before we move on? No? Okay, so number 17. Now, something that is rabbinically prohibited. It's not technically one of the 39 malachas, the 39 creative techniques that we can't do on Shabbos. It's something that's similar, and therefore we rabbinically said you can't do it. If you have a situation where by doing this rabbinically forbidden activity, you can fulfill a mitzvah, or you need this rabbinically forbidden activity to help a sick person, Now, we're not talking about someone whose life's in danger. Now, as we've said many times, someone whose life's in danger, Shabbos doesn't apply anymore. You can do whatever you need to do. It's for their comfort, just to help them. You can ask the non-Jew outright to do it. So I'll give an example. Someone has a bad flu, they've got a headache, they're really not feeling well, and there's a light in the room, and the light is really bothering them. So you can ask the non-Jew outright to turn the light off for the sick person. A light, though, probably is more similar to, it's probably not rabbinic, it's actual the Torah. That's not a good example, perhaps, but something that we can't do. So, or for a mitzvah. So that's why they say, for an example, we need something done in a shul. It's for the communal needs of the congregation to do a mitzvah. So we could ask. Now, because of this, it comes from this. That we allow, we ask, we have a custom where we ask a non-Jew on Shabbos to bring beer or something else that's needed on Shabbos, even where there's no Erev. So not in a total public domain, not a total Rishus HaRabim, a complete one, which has 600,000 people, but on our streets that are only rabbinic public domains. So we could ask a non-Jew to carry something. However, this is only in a situation where there's nothing else to drink. But if it's just to make it more enjoyable, you can't ask. So nowadays, we have water available, right? You can turn on the faucet and out comes water. We have what to drink. When this was written, people had to go to the well, or if you couldn't go to the well, so if a barrel of beer or something, or often the water wasn't drinkable either, fresh water. So you have to drink other things, such as beer and wine were the standard sort of drinks for the meal, or soft drink today. So when you don't have anything, and most of our streets today don't have 600,000 people on a regular basis, on a daily basis. The main roads in Manhattan do, and maybe some of the freeways and highways around the country, but most suburban areas don't have that. So it's only rabbinically that we can't carry there. So we could ask the non-Jew to bring us something, but that's only when we really don't have anything else to drink. Today, where there's water on tap, it doesn't really apply. It just makes it more pleasurable to have a nicer drink. We can even ask a non-Jew to bring something from outside the tchum, outside the border of where we can go on Shabbos. Again, for those who weren't part of the class when we studied that, we said outside the town limits. That means where the houses stop. So most major cities today, you could walk for the whole day and still be in a built-up area full of houses. But in concept, if you lived at the edge of the city or in a bungalow colony in the country, something like that, you go where the houses are quite a distance apart. So we're outside the city limits. We can only walk about 2/3 of a mile. And that border is called the tchum, which means border, essentially. Means the limit. So for a mitzvah or a sick person or something like that, we can ask a non-Jew to bring something. So An example might be for a mitzvah, we need a shofar. So you can carry the shofar again. Yontiv. When it's Shabbos, we don't blow the shofar, but when Yontiv, most of these rules apply as well. So we can't go past the tchum on Rosh Hashanah, but the shofar is past the tchum. So we can ask the non-Jew to bring it for us. It's for a mitzvah. Or maybe there's a person has a medication. Now again, we're not talking about a life-threatening medication, a life-essential medication. So, but if it's something that's going to help the unwell person. So let's say not an asthma situation where it's dangerous, chas v'shalom, but a person is feeling uncomfortable with the asthma. It's just the breathing's not comfortable, and they're not in any danger. They don't feel so good. It's a little bit more of a strain, and the Ventolin spray, whatever it is past the tchum, or it's a place where a Jewish person can't carry on Shabbos. So we can organize for the non-Jew to do that. Right. So we can ask him to bring it from outside the tchum, outside the border. We can't go. So, okay, I have to give my apologies. We can't ask to bring the tchum from outside the tchum, because the tchum is not rabbinic. Right? The tchum is, so if we ask him to bring it, we can't use it. V'yesh oimrim to adin b'mokim hesed. Now, there's a opinion. This is even when there's going to be a great loss. So the Taltus Chayra and the Sedus Shomim, for example, not only for a mitzvah, but let's say you have produce outside and it's starting to rain and it's going to get ruined. We can ask him to bring it in. Muta al yadei goy, we can ask the non-Jew to bring it in. And we can rely on this in a time of great need. So we'll just review it, especially since I messed up one of the points. So we have to undo part of what I said. So we started off saying something that's only rabbinically prohibited. We can ask the non-Jew if it's going to help us for a mitzvah or for a sick person. So therefore, you could ask a non-Jew to bring something to carry in an area that's only rabbinically forbidden to carry. And that's what I should give an example about the shofar. Well, shofar's not a good example. Let's say we need something for a mitzvah. We need a cup to make kiddush. There's no cups where we are. We can't go to the place, whatever it is. There's a door and a sensor, so we can't go get it. So we can ask the non-Jew to go get it. However, unlike what I said before, and I apologize, I said the wrong thing, to bring from outside the tchum, we can't ask him. I can't ask the non-Jew because that's a Torah prohibition, not a rabbinic. And not only for a sick person or a mitzvah, that even is going to be a large financial loss. So we gave an example, you had produce, or it could be, most of us don't have our own produce, but let's say we left the stereo. Actually, we don't really have stereos anymore either, but you left whatever it was outside on the front lawn, and it's going to get, well, someone's going to steal it, or it's starting to rain. You can ask the non-Jew to bring it in. Okay, so now that I confused everyone by saying the wrong thing the first time, do we need any clarification, or we've? Yes, David.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a question or not, But if you're trying to go outside you don't want to go outside the Techum to get this item. But the person who owns the item, his Techum may overlap to your Techum. It's like two circles that are coming close and overlapping each other. So then what do you do?
Okay, so generally we say something that's brought in a permissible manner is okay. So don't ask a very good question. let's leave aside a mitzvah. Let's just say in general. I'm living in one, I've got my hut I got my farm. So we're totally outside the city limits. So I have my farmhouse. So that means from my property, I can go only this 2,000 amos is approximately 2/3 of a mile. So it's about a kilometer. So that's how far I can go. Someone else's farmhouse, he is, let's say, he's 1 and a bit miles from me. So he can also only go 2/3 of a mile, but somewhere in the middle, the distance I can go and the distance he can go overlap. So again, on Shabbos, we can't carry, but let's say it was Yom Tov. So something that goes somewhere in a permissible manner, you're allowed to use it. Now, I still can't take it beyond, even though it came from outside my Techum, but now it's come into my Techum in a permissible manner. So I can use it in that spot, but I can't transport it outside the objects. So I can only use it in the overlap area. I can't take it all the way into my area. Right, so that's how it would work there. Okay. Number 18, Yurches. Beis HaKor. Winter, the time it's very cold. So unlike those of us who are in Phoenix or Florida, various things, some people are living where it snows right now. So in a time of great cold, you're allowed to ask a non-Jew to kindle the fire. Like you get them to put the fire on. Because everyone is considered a sick person in respect to cold. In other words, if it's a very cold environment and we don't have some type of heat, everyone's going to become, God forbid. So we're allowed to ask a non-Jew to stoke the fire, put on the fire, throw on wood and keep it going, whatever we need to do, keep the fire going. Because we're all considered like a sick person under those circumstances. So that means even today, where if you don't necessarily have a fireplace, but it could be electric or gas heating, whatever it happens to be. It might just be turning on the button at the thermostat, turning on the power, or setting the thermostat. The same concept applies. However, if you don't really need it, it's a bit cold, but you put on a sweater, you're fine. You don't really need. It's not. Okay, there are certain temperatures you need the heat on. I mean, there's a limit to how many layers you can wear. But sometimes it's just a drop chilly. You put on a sweater and it's no problem. So if it's not really necessary, then we shouldn't ask the non-Jew to do it. The gam asur aniach l'goy shasik satana b'Shabbos. Also, if it wasn't that cold, but now it's the afternoon and Shabbos afternoon, and we know it's going to get cold in the evening, we shouldn't ask them to put on the fire now to stop the house from getting cold Saturday night. This is a part of course, as we explained, we don't prepare on Shabbos for after Shabbos. Now, that's cold. Let's talk about, it doesn't speak about air conditioning because air conditioning wasn't invented. Most authorities view air conditioning in a hot environment the same thing. I mean, so we'll give an example, living in Phoenix. Most of the summers, it's over 110. You can get up to 120. You need the air conditioning, right? It's not a matter of just being a little more comfortable. People will get sick, God forbid. So it's the same concept. So if it's just a little tad warm, means he's going to sweat a little bit, have a cold drink. But if it's a situation where it's getting, a little extreme, then we're allowed to ask the non-Jew to put on the cooling the same way as we can the heating. Okay. Any questions, comments on that? Yeah, David.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I only have the English translation. I'm not sure if this is correct. It says, also, one should not let a Gentile light a furnace on Shabbos afternoon so that it will be warm on Saturday night. So you shouldn't let him? Like you should prevent him or ask him not to?
That's right. That's if it's for you. Right. So back to the situation that we said in the introduction. If they're doing something for themselves, it's their house. They're putting the heat on for themselves or the cooling. And, you can walk in and enjoy it. They didn't have you in mind. If they're doing it for you, you have to protest. You have to say, I'm sorry, we can't do this on Shabbos. If they did it for both of you, you're in the, wherever the hotel, where it happens to be, and, they want, it is quite cold, and they're putting the heat on so both of you can benefit, but it's for themselves as well. You don't have to protest. Can't ask them, you don't have to protest. Yes, Ben.
What about if it's hot and you want to open the window?
Open the window is no problem because that doesn't involve a Shabbos issue. Unless you got, I don't know, sensors. Some people, if you open the window, it sets the alarm. Even if the alarm is turned off, some people have, when you open it. Some places, when you even open a door or window, something goes on a board to say that door 1 is open or window 2. Right. So that could be problematic. You'd have to turn all that off. But a regular window, you can open a window on Shabbos. And if that's enough
you don't have to ask anybody, you can do it.
Yeah, you can do it yourself. So, and if that's enough to, get a bit of a breeze and now it's fine. So that's far more preferable than asking a non-Jew to, put the cooling on or something. It's all going to depend on the circumstances. Okay. Number 19. Your test, number 19. Also, the shloch goy chutz tchum, b'shvil karov ha'meis, or b'shvil sastam. You can't send a non-Jew to go tell relatives of someone who passed away that they passed away on Shabbos, to go outside the tchum. So you can't send them further than you can travel. So you have to wait till after Shabbos to inform them. Or to eulogize them. So, I think in one of our first classes, when I started giving the shiur, someone mentioned a situation like that, where there'd been a car accident. I don't recall who it was. And they weren't able to tell the relatives until after Shabbos. So this is where we see it. Okay. 20. All right. So now we're not talking about asking the non-Jew. The situation just happened on its own. So we're going to give a scenario. Goya maybe Tvul Yisrael b'choyvoy. This non-Jew, he owed money and he's brought some of his produce. The Yisrael noising noise of Tachlit, and the Jew doesn't take it per se, he just gives him the key to his warehouse. And the non-Jew himself starts measuring out and puts it in the warehouse. So mutter, this is permissible. Why is it permissible? He's doing this for himself, right? So he's occupied with his own work. The produce isn't yours, doesn't belong to a Jew. Until after he delivers it, he measures it out, puts it. Then it belongs to the Jew. But till now, he's doing his own business. Now, yes, he could come on Sunday for the same price, but Sunday, he's going fishing. So the fact that he wants to deliver it today on Shabbos, he's doing it for his own benefit. It's for his purposes. Now, I had a situation like this quite a few years ago. I don't know if it's funny or sad. Sometimes life, when it really happens, if it was a sitcom, no one would laugh because you say it's too unrealistic. Life can be far more interesting than anything you could make up. So a shul that I was involved in, I was actually a rabbinical student at the time. And there was a fire in the shul. Most likely arson, but we leave that aside. And a whole corner of the shul had to be repaired. And the shul had made a contract with the builder that they can't work on Shabbos. They have to stop whatever time, Friday, I don't remember what time it was, maybe 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then they can't work until after nightfall on Saturday. So fine, that was part of the contract. Some of the carpentry work, the builder subcontracted to a carpenter and arranged for the carpenter to come in on Sunday to do the work. This carpenter wanted to go to a wedding on Sunday. And so he came in, he let himself in Shabbos morning, and he started working. So I was one of the first ones there, and I noticed the door that were davening in the shul, like the hall, at a social hall. And next door was the shul. I noticed the door was slightly ajar. So I just went in and I saw the fellow. Anyway, he tells his story. So technically, it's allowed because he's not coming on Shabbos. You don't want him to come on Shabbos. You don't need him to come on Shabbos. As a matter of fact, you particularly wanted that he shouldn't come on Shabbos. And he's not even working for you, this fellow. He's working for the non-Jewish builder. But he's coming on Shabbos for himself. So technically, it wasn't a problem. Now, if I actually would have been the rabbi of the shul, probably would have had him go anyway because it doesn't look right, But there wasn't a rabbi at the time, and I certainly didn't have the authority to. Anyway, midway through the services, or not long after services started, a man came to the shul in his car on Shabbos. Again, we don't judge, that's his circumstances. Doesn't know about Shabbos properly yet. But he comes in the car, he parks out the front, and he comes in, and he decided he just wanted to see, what the shul looked like. It was midway through repairs. So he walks in, he sees the carpenter. And he comes over and he says to me, told me I should make a protest. So I told him, technically, it's not really an issue. So he stands up in the middle of the service. He says, I'm going to drive to a shul where they keep Shabbos. And he runs back out, gets in his car. It's a small little street. He just floors it. And, because of the spectacle, everyone sort of went out. And just as he's coming to the corner, there was this a young man who used to come to the shul. He's like coming around the corner. He's walking the shul. And comes to the corner. He sees this car like hurtling towards him. And he slams on the brakes and there's this screech. And we all thought for sure God forbid, he just stops, like an inch away from him. And the fellow's just frozen in fear. So he jumps out of the car, he grabs him by the shoulders, shakes him, says, "They're not keeping Shabbos," and throws him onto the sidewalk, and then jumps back in the car and drives away. That was, right. So technically not an issue, but that's how it goes. So if he's doing it for himself, so this fellow, he's paying the debt today because that's convenient for him. So you can't aid him, you can't write it down, you can't sign a receipt, you can't help him unload. But if you just give him the key to the warehouse and he puts it on, now again, depends if the warehouse is in a public place and it looks like the Jew is getting delivery to his business on Shabbos. It could be a Morris iron, like it could be a situation where it doesn't look right. So that's a separate issue. But just in respect to Shabbos, it's not a Shabbos problem because he's coming today for his convenience, not because you want him and not because you need him to come this day. He's doing it for himself. The Yisrael mutar lo la'amad sham. The Jew is also allowed to stand there, to make sure the fellow is not going to cheat him, make a mistake. Once he's already delivering, he's meant to put 100 bags of, cement in the warehouse. And so the Jew is allowed to stay there, make sure he actually puts 100 bags. As long as you don't speak to him. Now, you can speak to him, you can say, "How are you today?" And how are the kids? But you can't speak to him about the business that's going on because you can't actually be part of it. However, if he delivered the Jew's own grain or cement or whatever it happens to be. So remember in the scenario we gave, he owes the Jew money. He's bringing produce to pay the debt or whatever happens to be. But if it's your produce, he's hired to harvest the field, or you prepaid, you bought the cement and now you're getting a delivery. Right? So delivery is something you ordered. You're not allowed to tell him to unload it from the wagon into his warehouse, your warehouse. Right? You can't be part of. Now, when we get a Amazon delivery or something, they're not asking our permission. They just leave it at the door, knock and walk off, or the mail, those kinds of things. But if someone comes in and asks our permission for delivery, we can't accept it. But even if they want to unload it, their own initiative, they decide themselves they want to unload it. If it's ours already, then you have to protest. Now, again, this isn't the Amazon delivery because it's not really yours until they deliver it. But if you had furniture that you say, you buy large piece of furniture, it doesn't fit in your car, and you pay for them to deliver it. So if they end up delivering on Shabbos, you have to tell them to come another day. Okay. Any questions on that? Questions, comments? Okay, so now we're going to go into a twist on this. Right, so what's happening? 21. We'll give it a scenario and then we'll discuss it. You have a non-Jew. He has a dairy, and he makes cheese from the milk. Yisrael royes a chaliva v'ageven. But the Jew watches the milking, and he watches the cheese making process. Okay, once it's put away to set, it's locked up. You don't have to watch. but a Jew needs to watch the milking. That's what Chol Yisrael is. Okay, there are some people who rely on a leniency that the government regulations we have today has the same effect. Different discussion, not really getting to that. I mean, as a side point, I mean, without hijacking the Shabbos shir, I see in schools and other industries that the way places run are not the same way. The day the government inspectors are on site, things don't run exactly that way every other day. Right? It's when inspectors are not there, people know what's the saying? It's only legal to speed if there's a policeman around. Right? Now, I'm not condoning speeding or encouraging, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying in every industry, people cut corners. Again, I'm not saying every person, but many people cut corners and don't necessarily do everything that's required when there's not an inspector or an enforcement agency there. So I'm not sure you could really rely on the government regulators, but we'll leave that aside. But ideally, a Jew should watch the milking, and they also have to watch the making of the cheese. So they sort of take the fat off the milk, and anyway, once they put it into the mold and they put it away, you can lock it up. You don't have to watch it after that because it's sealed. But the actual milking, the formation of the cheese. So, Kadesh de Maturas Yisrael, a Jew can watch it on Shabbos in order to make sure that it's kosher. Shabbos, and so he can purchase it after Shabbos. Even though the non-Jew is having in mind that he's doing this process today, so Jews will buy it when it's not Shabbos, Harizemut is still allowed to give the supervision to the milking on Shabbos, given since at the end of the day, this milk and this cheese belongs to the non-Jew. The Taivas Atzmahu Oisa, and the non-Jew is milking today and making cheese today for his own benefit, because he wants product that he can do business with. So he's not really doing it for Jews, even though generally speaking, you make the kosher product for the kosher market, for the Jewish market. But at this moment, it's his belonging that he's working with. It's his milk. He's making cheese that belongs to him. He hasn't sold it. There's no pre-orders. There's there's not a deposit down. This 100% belongs to him. And not only can the Jew go supervise, he's even allowed to tell the non-Jew to make it on Shabbos. Milk, make 100 pieces of cheese today. Why is he allowed to do that? You're allowed to tell a non-Jew to do his own work, right? Because a non-Jew doesn't keep Shabbos. It's not allowed to keep Shabbos. You can tell, so let's say you see a non-Jew mowing his lawn on Shabbos. You can tell him, good job, keep it up. He's pruning his garden. You can say, you should pull out those weeds over there. It'll be better. Or, why don't you prune this one in the shape of an elephant, the hedge, You can tell him that, because at the end of the day, it's his work. It's not nothing to do with you. You're telling him to do his own business. So similarly, you can tell this non-Jew to make cheese on Shabbos, produce cheese on Shabbos, kosher cheese. I'm going to supervise it because it's his own work. Even though the Jew obviously benefits from it. So when we said that we can't ask a non-Jew to do something on Shabbos for the benefit of a Jew, this is when he's directly doing it, directly benefiting the Jew. Here, it's already secondary. In other words, what he's making the cheese on Shabbos doesn't benefit you on Shabbos. Yeah, he's made the cheese. So after it ages for 3 months, it gets sold to the kosher supermarket, and then a Jew gets cheese out of it. But right now on Shabbos, there's no difference to you. Did he do it today, yesterday, tomorrow, 2 months ago? Makes no difference. Okay, any questions on that? Yes, David.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, it sounds a little strange that you're not allowed to do any business transactions, but it sounds like you're helping him do his business transactions.
So there's 2 things. Number one, you can tell a non-Jew to do his own things, no problem. And since you're not involved in it, it causes no problem for you. In this case, what makes it slightly borderline is that a Jew is supervising. Right? A Jew is, providing hashgacha, which does happen, by the way, when they do milkings. It's particularly when they do hobbies or runs. There's they do here in Phoenix, not far from here, about 20 minutes away, for 2-3 weeks a year, and they make milk powder. It goes to Israel. So it's made here, but you can't buy any here. But it's so a company comes and they use locals to supervise, and there's a Shabbos shift. Right? They're going 24/7 for the 3 weeks. Now, obviously, the Jew who's supervising can't be paid for those hours. They get paid double for the next shift, whatever. And they can't do anything you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. They just hang around and watch. But yeah, it's slightly borderline, but it's just the right side of the border.
Rabbi, can I ask you a quick question?
Please.
Are you saying that a Jew is supervising something on Shabbos? He's just watching, but he's not going to get paid until whenever his paycheck. In other words, he is supervising something on Shabbos. He's doing work on Shabbos.
Well, let's give another example. Let's give another example, because most of us don't work at the dairy. But something that happens more often today, I was going to mention in a minute. Let's say there's a bar mitzvah, big kiddush and Shabbos, and the caterer, so it's all brought before Shabbos to the location, but the caterer has non-Jewish waiters, and they're setting the tables and they're putting the food out. Now, if it's a kosher caterer, they're going to have a mashgiach, they're going to have a kosher supervisor there, because we need to make sure that no one puts anything else there, right? Only you wouldn't want one of the non-Jewish workers, and could be, not maliciously, just in good faith, they put out the chicken, and they say, oh, there's more people expected, and they just run down to the KFC and get a few more pieces. We to avoid that, we have a kosher supervisor, and he's making sure that this function that's on Shabbos is kosher. Now, he can't really, he can't do any of the work. He can't make anything. He can't, he's just supervising. So standing around watching is not really an issue on Shabbos. You can, plenty of people in shul who just stand around and watch and don't do much, right? But that's not technically breaking Shabbos, so he can do that. What we said that where he can't get paid, we learned earlier that a person can't get paid for doing work on Shabbos. So let's say this, because of this function, he works 6 hours on Shabbos, and he gets paid $10 an hour. I mean, he's getting paid $10 an hour. He should probably find another job, but I'm just using round numbers. And he was also there 2 hours before Shabbos when they came with all the food and loaded up into the fridges and did the delivery. So he's worked 8 hours total. So what happens is they'll pay him $80 for the 2 hours he did on Friday instead of $10 per hour, because
now I get it. Now I understand.
You can't technically pay someone to do something on Shabbos.
Okay.
All right. So I'd say another example. I think we mentioned it the other week.
That's how the rabbi gets paid too on Shabbos.
Well, we're going to say, well, hopefully not paid up for Shabbos, but we're saying, let's say the person who reads the Torah on Shabbos, he doesn't get paid for reading the Torah on Shabbos. He's actually getting paid for the preparation that he does before Shabbos, because you can't pay someone to do something on Shabbos, and reading the Torah requires quite a lot of preparation. There's no vowels, no punctuation. So needs to practice. So if the rabbi gets paid, he gives the sermon on Shabbos. He's not getting paid to give the sermon. Some people like to pay the rabbi not to give the sermon, but that's another story. But he's getting paid for the preparation he does before Shabbos. And even if he's formulating his mind on Shabbos, he still had to learn all the things, that he's formulating. It's hard to put something together if you don't know anything about it. Now, that's not to say none of us said, yes. Yeah, unmute. You're on mute. Just unmute yourself. So, yes.
Okay, someone is supervising the process of making things kosher. Yes. But if they cannot make any comments or to give any instructions about how to do it, what would be the process?
So they can make a comment because they're making a comment for this person's work. So the same way I could say to the person, if I'm walking past the non-Jew who's mowing his lawn, and I can say to him, oh, you missed a patch. And because that's for his work, something to do with me. So similarly, let's say the person was supervising the milking. We'll use the example we had here. That you could make a comment about that, because at the end of the day, it's the non-Jew's milk still, and he's doing it for himself. No Jew has bought it yet, right? If the non-Jew was working on a Jew's farm, then it becomes a problem, because now he's doing work directly for a Jew. But here he's doing it for himself. It's his work. So in that situation, you can give him instructions.
And the same way for a kosher meal, if it is for any type of celebration.
Yeah, I mean, for the kosher meals, let's say when you have the kiddush, normally everything's cooked, because you can't cook on Shabbos. So we can't have the non-Jews cook on Shabbos because they're cooking for Jews. It's not normally a matter of the setting up, they're taking things out of the fridge. It's packed in bulk and they're putting out little serving plates. And we just need to ensure that it's only what is meant to go out is going out. So technically, these are things that most of the things they're doing, a Jew could have done themselves. It's just all the Jews want to enjoy the bar mitzvah, so they've hired someone else.
Sure.
So for something you could do yourself, like how to set the table, or even most of the cleaning up afterwards, you can give clear instructions. All right. 22. It's a short one. We'll squeeze it in. Beat the clock. So what happens is a non-Jew buys something. So let's say I'm had a caravan, and the non-Jew buys it. I wait for the check to clear before he's allowed to pick it up, and it's now his. Signed the contract, did everything. It's his, and he comes on Shabbos to pick it up. The im efsha yesh lemano. If it's possible, you should prevent him, right? Because it doesn't look right. At the end of the day, though, it's his. If he really wants to attach it to his, tow bar and drive off, you can't really stop him. So if you're able to, you stop him. 23, and we'll finish the chapter. Someone, there's a relative's yard site, there's an anniversary that passed on Shabbos. And he forgot to light a yard site candle. So if it's a weekday, it's no problem. You meant to light at the beginning of the evening. You forgot 2 hours later, you light it now. But now it's Friday night. And Shabbos, we can't light a flame. We can ask a guy, we can ask a non-Jew if it's between sunset and nightfall. Now there's this time, anywhere between half an hour and 70 minutes, depending which part of the world you live in. But this twilight period between sunset and nightfall, when the 3 stars come out, which is, it's doubtful. It's not clear which moment the Shabbos begins. So we keep Shabbos out of doubt during that time. But it's possible there's not Shabbos. So at that time, we can ask a non-Jew to light the candle for us. But once it's nightfall, the 3 stars have come out, and it is Shabbos proper, then unfortunately we missed the opportunity. We're going to have to wait till next year. To light one a different night if you like, but the main idea of lighting the candle, the opportunity has been lost. So that's the chapter. Any other questions? Yes.
Happy Tu B'Shvat, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Greenberg. Thank you.
Thank you. That's right. Sunday night, Monday is Tu B'Shvat. It's the new year for the trees. So it's a custom to eat lots of fruit. So enjoy it. Special day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Wernick. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Wish everyone a wonderful Shabbos.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take it easy.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi, and Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you.